It's very convenient for me. I get to sit in my house and teach my classes. But regular life is better than this convenience. So, I'm not going to waste any of your time. Hello and welcome. Who's Schnerb? Who's Schnerb? Schnerb is who? I'm sorry?
I'm kind of putting on a shirt. It's Schnerb.
Oh,
Very simple, not B.
It says Schnerb. That's what it says. With all due respect, I'm not Israeli. I read in English.
Oh, my mistake. Honestly, I kind of wrote it fast. Usually it's Schnerb with the dot. My mistake. Give me a second. Putting on a t-shirt.
Baron. Oh, I'm slow, but I got it. You see? You left such a lasting impression that I remember your name. You may regret it, but I remember your name.
So sometimes I call you Jesus. Just sometimes.
Okay. Now listen, Chavre. You should have the worksheet, the text from which we're reading. If you'll go to, it's so many layers, but you could find it. If you go to the Ache Drive worksheets. So if you go to Ache Drive worksheets, so then there'll be a subsection that's going to say my name, Rabbi Paltiel. It's someplace here. You click Rabbi Paltiel. Then it'll say 5780 and 5780, 5781. You want the second one, 57. And then you want Chassidus Morning. And then you want learning sheet. So you got to put 6 clicks. Now I know in the post-click age, it's very difficult for people who are very sophisticated to click that many times, but I'm going to ask you to click that many buttons so you can find the sheets that I'm teaching you from. If you happen to have the actual original, then you're in good shape. Okay, this is class 3. This is our third class on Tekiah shofar. And now it's after Rosh Hashanah, but we sort of knew this was going to happen. We're going to do it anyway, okay? And one of the advantages that I have on Zoom, by the way, for the record is that I can talk to the computer anytime I wish. So I think we have only 2 more classes, right? Today and tomorrow, is that the case, Rabbi? Or today, tomorrow, and Thursday? How many do we have?
Is that 2?
Thursday's what?
Sorry? Thursday's what? We have Thursday as well. We have 3 classes: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm not going to finish the syllabus. Thursday as well. Okay, we're not going to finish by then. I may just do myself a favor and finish, which means I'll come on at this time, Tuesday after Yom Kippur, and Wednesday after Yom Kippur, and if necessary, Thursday after Yom Kippur, and keep learning the syllabus. I'm going to put up the PDF for the second half of this, and if you are desperate to learn Chassidus, even though you don't have to, you'll be able to join. I have selfish reasons for why I want to continue, because I have more than one audience. So if there's no yeshiva, I'm not continuing Tekiah after Yom Tov, is my point. Our first topic after Yom Tov will be Be'ezer Hashem Yisbarach, Bris Milah. We're going to be doing topics of Chassidus, but I'm going to try to find, at least to some extent, Parsha-related material. So our first topic after Yom Tov is going to be Bris Milah. So I intend on finishing this Tekiah syllabus, whether you'll be here or not. And if I'll be happy to put them up the classes on time, around 8:30 each day. And if you'll come and learn, you'll know more Torah. It's that simple. Okay, so we're learning about Tekiah shofar. And what we did was, we went back to the Rasag, Reb Sadia Gaon, which is cited in Chassidus in many, many places. And as it turns out, you can't find it in the Rasag. I have the Rasag Siddur. I have an old print of the Rasag Siddur. There's probably a better one, but I don't have it. The Rasag Siddur is full of missing pieces. It's based on a Ksav Yad, on a manuscript that was found, I think, in Oxford. And it's incomplete. The beginning is missing. There's pieces missing here and there. So there are a lot of Sforim who quote from the Rasag's Siddur, which we do not have in the Siddur HaRasag. From what I was able to tell, and I could be wrong, but from what I was able to tell, this piece that we learned last year, is not found in the printed Siddur HaRasag. It's simply not there. And that is a discussion on 10 timim, 10 reasons for Tekiah shofar, for blowing shofar from Reb Sadia Gaon. But we have them from the Abu Draham. The Rador, as I explained to you, compiled what is the most important work considered ever made. And he has all 10 reasons of Rasag. He brings them. I'm not going to go over all 10 of them. But remember, one of them was making Hashem a king. Another was to remember the idea of Tshuva. Third one was to remember Matan Torah. Fourth was to remember the Nevi'im. And so on. 10 different reasons. And of course, what's interesting about the Rasag's 10 different reasons, it's not that he's saying the same thing 3 or 4 times so you can get to the magic number 10. There are 10 distinct timim for Tekiah shofar. So now, according to our learning, we're on the 3rd page of the syllabus, and this is the Rambam. This is a very, very famous Rambam. This Rambam, Levi Yitzchak, good morning, Shalom Aleichem. Are you on the right coast or on the wrong coast of the United States of America?
I don't know. I'm in Florida.
Are you home or you're in New York?
I'm in Florida.
You're in Florida, so you're on the right coast. Okay. Good morning. The Rambam is very famous. All the Balei Musa bring him. Chassidus brings him all over the place. There's a lot of biurim in Chassidus on this Rambam, and I'm just going to read it inside, okay? Just one thought as an introduction to this Rambam. The Rambam wrote a sefer of halachas, and every single word in the Rambam is a din. And one of the things about the Rambam's halachas is that not only is every single word in the Rambam a din, the location of a halacha is also a din. Where the Rambam writes it changes the din. Now, in this case, the Rambam has halachas of shofar. The Rambam has halachas of shofar. Where are the Rambam's halachas of shofar? They're where they belong, in Sefer Zmanim. In the section of Rambam that talks about Yom Tiv, you'll have Shabbos, you'll have Erevin, you'll have Yom Tiv, and then you'll have shofar sukkah v'lulav, and then you'll have chametz u'matzah, and then you'll have whatever comes after that. Kiddush HaChedish, Hilchos Titus, I'm probably missing one. But the halachas of shofar by the Rambam are in the laws of Yom Tiv. The Rambam also has a section on tshuva, Hilchos Tshuva, that whether you're learning 3 prakim a day or 1 perek a day, we already did it in Rambam in this cycle, Hilchos Tshuva. In the Rambam's Hilchos Tshuva, he talks about shofar a 2nd time. And of course, the Rebbe has wonderful sichos where he analyzes why would the Rambam include shofar in the Hilchos of Tshuva. And the Rebbe explains, because the Rambam holds that there's 2 ideas in shofar. There's the mitzvah of shofar, and there's the concept of tshuva of shofar. Now remember, our first syllabus, the first thing we did was the discussion on tshuva. Right before we did shofar, we did tshuva. And one of the things that came up in passing in our discussing on tshuva was the question whether tshuva is a mitzvah or not. There's an argument that says that the mitzvah is vidui, confession, and tshuva is more than a mitzvah. It's higher than a mitzvah. The Rambam brings shofar in 2 places. He brings it in the mitzvah of shofar, and he brings it in the halachas of tshuva. And the Rebbe suggests, because the Rambam wants us to understand that there's a concept of shofar which is a mitzvah, and there's a concept of shofar which is more than a mitzvah, namely the concept of tshuva. So I'm going to read the Rambam inside. Please follow, okay? Halacha Daled, Afal Pi, even though Tekiah shofar b'Rosh Hashanah Gezeres Hakos. Blowing shofar Rosh Hashanah is a divine decree. It's an edict. You have to blow shofar whether you're in the mood or not, whether you like it or not. It's a mitzvah to say to blow shofar. Says the Rebbe Remez Yeshpei. The Rambam says that shofar has a remez, has a hint. Rambam holds that you'll never know the real reasons for mitzvahs. Mitzvahs have many reasons, and the Rambam paskin that it's a mitzvah to try and find reasons for mitzvahs. Kol she'efshar losas leitam, 10 leitam. But the Rambam also holds that if you give 1,000 reasons for a mitzvah, you'll never really know the real reason for the mitzvah. Time beteira leinis galsa. So the Rambam says shofar is a mitzvah like any other mitzvah. Why do you do it? God said. But there is a logic to shofar which you can explain, and it's a hint. What is the hint claim? It means to say, Uru yeshene mishinaschem. Wake up, sleeping ones, from your sleep. V'akitzur nirdomim mitir demaschem. And wake up, slumbering ones, from your slumber. Now, what's the difference between shina and tardema? Shina means sleep, tardema means sleep. I guess the presumption is that tardema is a deeper sleep. When a person is stam sleeping, they're a yoshan. when a person is sleeping so deeply you can't wake him up, they're a nirdam. Okay? So the Rambam says that the remez of shofar is that whether you're sleeping or you're sleeping deeply, the shofar cries and it wakes you up. V'chipshu ma'asechem, b'ma'asechem, examine your way, your actions. V'chizru b'tshuva, and return and do tshuva. V'zichru b'racham, and remember your Creator. So the Rambam says that the shofar is a mitzvah, which means you got to do it. Doesn't matter why, but the shofar also has a message. The message is wake up. In other words, the shofar is not talking to a yid who's devout, who's engaged, who's filled with a interest in Yiddishkeit, but it's speaking also to the Jew who is spiritually sleeping, and the shofar is saying to him or to her, wake up. Okay? And he continues, Elu, this is an allusion to, when you speak about waking somebody up from sleep, what does it mean? Some people forget the truth because they become caught up in hevel. Hevel means something without substance. The literal translation of the word hevel is air. What's air? A medium that you can walk through very easily, right? You can't walk through a wall at all, right? It's very difficult to walk through water, right? If you try walking in a pool, it's very hard. But to walk through air, that's what we do all the time. It's not very substantive. So Havle Hazman means the air, the substancelessness of the time. And this changes. In every generation, in every community, in every part of the world, in every culture, there's different Havolim. There's different things that people decided are very important, and they're really not important at all. So people get caught up in Havle Hazman. Havle Hazman means the nonsense that the people around them are taking very seriously, and they really shouldn't take it so seriously. So the Rambam says the shofar wakes people up who are asleep. What kind of people? Even those people who are distracted from being servants of HaKadosh Baruch Hu because of the hevel, the substancelessness that's preoccupying, because right now that's considered, what makes you a mensch, And once upon a time you were a mensch if you could draw your sword faster than the next guy. At a different time, what makes you a mensch? That you wear nice clothes. At a different time, what makes you a mensch is that you eat certain food. What makes you a mensch? That you have certain diet or that you have certain political beliefs. It's the constant is, right now this is important. Yesterday it was nothing. Tomorrow it's going to be nothing again. Which means it's not real, it's not forever, and it's called Hevel. And people get caught up in Havle Hazman, in the trivialities of the time. And one of the messages of shofar is you're caught up in Havle Hazman. The shofar says get over it. Instead of being busy with Havle Hazman, be busy with Torah, which is Lamayla min Hazman. It's not for today, it's for always. And I'm reading on. V'shoigim kol shnasam, and they erroneously dispense of all of their life. Shnasam is in the word shonim, years. And shoigim means mistakes. They're mistaking away their time. Behevav with substancelessness and adik. Adik literally means spittle, something which has no real value. Asher lo yoyil v'lo yatzel. It's not helpful, and it's not going to save you. In other words, it's not really useful. It's the political correctness of the time and place in which you find yourself. And then the Rambam continues. Habitul nafshei seichem. Look at your soul. Ve'itivu darcheichem u'malalechem. Correct your ways and your schemes. Schemes means the plans that you have about how you're going to live your life. Drochim, I think, connotes more the actions of the person, and the alilois means more the thought processes, the planning of the person. V'yazev kol echad mikem, and each of you should abandon, should drop. Darkei hara, the ways that are bad, umachshavtei ashalei teiv, and the thoughts which are not good, and move on to something more meaningful. This is a very, very famous Rambam, and it's the Rambam's interpretation of tshuva. And in this Rambam, there are two thoughts. Number one, that the shofar is ma'ored for tshuva, and number two is that the shofar is ma'ored, to say it in Yiddish, Lignischten Narishkeiten. Don't define yourself by, I don't know what sports team you're preoccupied when you see a kid an intelligent boy of 18, 19, and his most important interest is what's going on in the football on yesterday. Yesterday was Sunday. 2 days ago was Sunday. Last night was Monday night football. It's not a sin necessarily. It's hevle hazman. It's pustumvist. It's nothing. And if a person becomes very preoccupied with that, or with political correctness, or political incorrectness, or with politics altogether, a Yid's life has to be busy with things that are forever. Yiddishkeit is forever. It doesn't change over time. It's a constant. And the Rambam is saying the shofar is waking us up. Okay? Now, we're going to call this the 11th reason. That's how I'm teaching this. The Rasa gave us 10 reasons for shofar, and the Rambam brings us an 11th. To be sure, to be honest, the second reason of the Rasag was also tshuva. So really, this Rambam is not an 11th reason. It's just the same as the second reason of the Rasag. But we want to call it the 11th reason, so we're going to call it the 11th reason. You're free to stop me, but I don't know how you're going to do that. I don't think you want to waste your time figuring out how to stop me from calling it the 11th reason. Now, the difference between the Rambam and the Rasag is that the Rasag spoke only about tshuva. The Rambam also speaks about hevel hazman, and that's a very important idea. Not to be so caught up in what people around us consider really important, which is really not important at all. Okay? Now, if you have questions or comments, this is a great time to speak, but you have to unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next page. Your choice. Okay, so we're moving on to the next page. Now, I have my sheets look a little different than yours. I think by you it's the first line on the page. It begins with the word v'nisbayer, vav nun tov apostrophe, moshel al zeh b'shem habal shem tov. I believe that's what you would have. Okay, 1 second. Let me just take a look. It's near the top of the page. It's not mamish the first line. It's.
Rabbi, could you put it on the main screen?
Oh, I don't know how to do that. I'm not smart in the ways of technology.
In the ways of the phone?
What I could do is I could send it to you in the chat room. Would that help you?
I'm sure it would.
Only problem is, now that I said it, I'm not even sure how we do. I don't even see where I could share.
I don't think
Well,
there's a chat thing.
Rabbi, you can't not keep your promise. If you say something, you have to do it. And everything will be hanging because I'm in the chat room.
Okay, so leave the chat. There's no chat room here. How could you be in the chat room?
Oh no, I was in the... My mistake. I'm not as smart as you, but not in the phone, in the Zoom ways. Very big difference, but okay.
I don't know how to do this. I'm sorry. I don't know how to do this. So you're going to have to just listen. I don't know.
I don't have to listen.
Okay, so let's move on. I'm sorry, Shneur Zalman.
It's fine.
But Chevra, that's where it is. If you go to the Ache page where you have the sheets, it's 5781. It's Rabbi Paltiel. It's Morning Chassidus. It's Learning Sheets. We're on page 4, the 4th sheet down from the beginning. Okay. Now let me give you this introduction briefly, quickly. The Rebbe Marash, the 4th Lubavitcher Rebbe, has a hemshech, has a series which is considered very famous and very classic. That's called V'kocho. It's a Pesach hemshech. V'kocho is Pesach. V'kocho teichlu eisa. Hadei shenit korban Pesach. Masnechem chagurim, nalechem beraglechem, malkelchem b'yetchem, etc., etc. In the Hemshech V'kocha, it's very long. It's very long. The Ramarash talks about many different things. But at one point, he goes through all the Yom Tovim in order. In other words, a lot of sichas of the Rebbe about Yom Tov are based on this here V'kocha. He talks about Elul, he talks about Yemei HaSlichas, he talks about Rosh Hashanah, he talks about Seder Yemei Tshuva, he talks about Yom Kippur, he talks about the 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, he talks about the Sukkah, the Lulav, Simchas Beis HaSheva, everything gets attention. Then he talks about Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. By the way, the expression V'Yakev Holach Ledarkoi, which is so central to, Lubavitch, is also in this Hemshech V'Kocha from the Rebbe Marash. So in this Hemshech V'Kocha, the Rebbe Maharash, the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe, talks about the older Moedim of Tishrei, and amongst them is Rosh Hashanah, obviously. And in his discussion on Rosh Hashanah, he talks about Tekiah. And he brings two Mishalim. I have sheets that are not cut. Your pages were cut. Shnei Azam, if you want to take a picture of what I'm showing you and follow, you're welcome to, but I don't know how you would do that. This page is the middle of the Hemshech V'Kocha. It's page Tav Kuf Samachay of the new print.
If I probably did that, Rabbi, my eyes would probably be wounded by now because I'd have to be like scrunching like 3,000 times harder just to try to get a word that says on that page. But thank you, Doc.
But no, if you could take a picture of it and look at it, but okay. So you don't know how to open up. You don't know how to open up the Google Docs. You're on your phone.
No, I know how to open it. Just something's wrong with my Google.
Okay. So the Rebbe Maharash brings two Mishalim for Tekiah Shofar. One from the Baal Shem Tov and one from the B'ditchev Erov. Both of these ideas of Tekiah Shofar are included in the Rasag's list of 10. For sure, the B'ditchevers. But the way the Mishalim are brought out is really very wonderful. So we're just going to read it. It's Pashat, a mashal for Tekiah Shofar. A mashal for Tekiah Shofar. That's all it is, okay? So we're going to read first the Baal Shem Tov, and depending on how the clock goes, probably tomorrow we'll do the mashal of the B'ditchev Erov. Okay? So I'm beginning on the fourth page, after the line. V'nizbayir mashal halzeh b'shem ha-Baal Shem Tov zal. A mashal is given for this in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, and if you could read inside, I would appreciate it. Lemelech, it's analogous to a king. Sha'ayole ben Yachid was an only son. Melumed Heitiv, who's very well educated. Shayechabiv etzlei kibavas einei mamish. The king loves him like the black of his eye. So this is a kid growing up in a palace, which means he has every opportunity for pleasure and for self-gratification, but he also has opportunity for incredible education. And he's raised well. He has the best tutors. They teach him lots of stuff. He's very, very intelligent. He's very well schooled in many fields. But he's also a prince. Princes like to have fun. And this father and the son agreed together that his son, the prince, should leave the palace and travel to other lands to learn other fields of knowledge, to learn how people operate. In other words, this prince is going to be a king eventually. Being a king seems like a fun job, but it's really not. Kings have a lot of pleasure, and they have a lot of materialism, and they have a lot of honor. But the responsibility that they carry, I mean, it's more than a president, if you can imagine that. It's awesome. This boy is being reared, he's being raised, as they say in the Middle Ages, by divine right, because his father was a king, to be a king. And there's no such thing as enough education for a job like that. So this prince and his father agreed together that the prince should leave home, where he has all the pleasures in the world and all the education in the world, to go and explore other cultures, other languages, other civilizations, to learn how people live, which will be additional preparation for functioning effectively, successfully as a melech. Okay? So then, Nosan le'aviv hamelech, the father of the king gives him, sarim u'misharsim, officers, princes, other prominent members of the kingdom, and servants, v'hoynerav, and a lot of wealth. And he tells his son, sheyelech v'yiter b'medines v'iyayam, he should go and travel to other lands and to the distant islands. And by the way, whenever you say the word island in our culture, two ideas come to mind. If you're at all familiar with the Rebbe's language, America is considered an island compared to the mainland of Europe, where Matan Torah happened and where Eretz Yisrael is. And Australia is considered an island, even though it's considered a continent in terms of geology and geography. It's called an island because it's separated from the mainland where Matan Torah happened and where Eretz Yisrael is. So the father sends his kid off, go to Polynesia, go to the New World, learn stuff. The son should achieve a higher level of understanding than the son could ever achieve at home with his father. Now, what's supposed to happen is that this prince is supposed to go off and become educated. Instead, what happens is the prince goes off and he begins to waste his opportunity. I'm reading on. Time passes. And all of the wealth that his father had given him were expended, were used up on the cost of travel. To maintain the so-called lifestyle to which he had become accustomed while he was living in the palace. But more importantly, the kid is a pleasure seeker, likes to have fun, as they say in America. And he has lots of money, has lots of opportunity. And the son, the prince, is using this opportunity to indulge himself. And what he's doing is he's wasting his resources. He's using up the money that he needs for his mission. And he's also not learning anything. He's wasting away. He has an opportunity to learn and to grow. He's instead choosing to have fun and pleasure. More importantly, no pleasure is ever enough for him, so every day he's seeking additional pleasures. The Chazal say, the human nature is, if you indulge in all the pleasures you desire, it'll only be half, because you never ever finish. The more you give yourself, it's like drugs. The more you take, the higher a fix you need in order to get a high. Pleasures never run full circle. You never reach a point where you say, okay, I've done it all, I'm now satisfied, and I can move on to something else. So this prince is wasting everything. His wealth, his personnel, his intelligence, his background, just to pursue another, what's going to feel good today. It cost a lot of money. He sells everything. First he sells his commodities, then he sells his people. He brought with him all kinds of officers and servants. He sells them, takes the money and indulges in other pleasure, and then it's gone. And over the course of much time, he goes to a place which is so far away. He ends up in the forests in the jungles of the Amazon, or someplace deep in Asia where the pygmies live, or in Africa where you have cannibals. He ends up in a place where you have the most primitive people of all. He comes to a place which is so remote that people never even heard that there's a father. They never even heard that there's a king. And when the prince sees, he's tried many different techniques to bring meaning and life to himself. After wasting away all the wealth and all the wisdom and all the personnel that he had been given by his father, the guy just ruined himself. He had a golden opportunity to take resources that his father gave him to make himself a better prince, which would make him ultimately a better king, and he flushed it down the toilet. He ran it down a drain. He just wasted it. So he wants to go back home. He figures he'll come home, his father will give him a few pets, and then his father will give him back his life. The problem is, so much time has passed, he forgot the language of his country. He doesn't speak the language anymore. He's so estranged that he doesn't even speak the language that he used to speak in the palace. So he comes back home. He comes home. How can he possibly go into the palace and say, excuse me, I'm the prince? He forgot the language. So he comes to the capital and he meets important people and says, I'm the king's son. But he says it in a tongue that people don't understand. He speaks in a dialect which is primitive and that's uncultural. He's lost all the dignity and all the grandeur of royalty with which he was raised. He squandered. It's gone. So he introduces himself to people. Not only don't they laugh at him, they don't even know what he's talking about. He begins to tell people that he's the son of the king, and they all laugh at him. How could it be? Sheben melech adir kazeh, that the son of such an awesome king, yelech karua uboli kolkach, should be wearing torn clothing and clothing that are so worn. In other words, they look at him and say, "There's no way you're the prince. You're a loser. You're what's the word? You're homeless." He says, "No." Again, he's communicating only in riddles because he doesn't speak the language. But he says, "No, I'm the prince," and they all think it's very funny. But when he persists, he doesn't back off. He continues to say, "I'm the prince." So he gets into fights, and they hit him on the head. Now he's bleeding also. So by the time he gets to the palace, he doesn't speak the language. He has no money. He's wearing rags that are torn and worn, and he's got all these wounds because people are hitting him for being ridiculous, of being a nudnik. He finally comes to the palace, to the gate of the courtyard of the king. He begins to hint to them that he's also the son of the king. They also disregard him. So this prince, who used to be something so special, and by the way, when you say this prince used to be something so special, the name of the prince when he was so special was Avraham, was Yitzchak, was Yankov, was Moshe, yeah? And now so much time has passed, and he's become Ichveis, whoever his name is, but he's completely removed from everything or anything that is royal, which what he was destined to be, and he starts to scream. The king is not going to understand what he's saying. He doesn't speak in the language, but he's hoping that he'll recognize his voice. Now I'm turning the page. Turn the page. And when the king recognizes Koilai, the voice of this young man, Omar, the king says, this is the voice of my son screaming in his pain. And he's awakened with love for his son. He hugs him and he kisses him. This is the Baal Shem Tov's Moshe Tekiah shofar. The Moshe Tekiah shofar is Rosh Hashanah comes. We're Jews. The Eibusha should recognize us, just like we should recognize him, but he doesn't. Because it's possible that we become so estranged that we don't look at all like we used to look. You know. I mean, you guys have not yet gotten engaged and married, but you may have had siblings who've gotten engaged and married. By every vort, somebody tells the famous Dvar Torah of kosher lezavgum kekriyas yamsuf. The Gemara says that the shidduch is hard to make us to split the sea. So the Welt fragt Akasha, what is it about splitting the sea that's so difficult? What is it about making a shidduch which is as difficult as splitting the sea? So the vart that goes like this, that once upon a time, the Eibusha created the world. When the Eibusha created the world, he created the Yamsuf, the sea of reeds. And by the way, nobody knows exactly where Yamsuf is. It's conceivable that the Yamsuf is completely drained. Some people say it's an inland sea, like a lake. But nobody knows for sure. There's 5 different opinions about where the Yamsuf is. And he says to the Yamsuf, listen, in 2,000 years hence, my children are going to come here, and when they come, you're going to split. So the Yamsuf says to the Eibishter, how am I going to recognize them? So the Eibishter says, I'll show them to you. You'll see them now. And in 2,448 years, when I bring them a second time, you'll recognize them and you'll split. So the Yamsuf agrees. So the Eibishter takes neshamas from Gan Eden and introduces them to the Yam. The Yamsuf sees holy souls, big tzaddikim, with incredible attachments to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and great avodah and besidas nefesh and Kabbalah Seil. Allah Mailet, shine good. Anyway, 2,000 years pass. The Yidden come out of Mitzrayim and they come to the Yamsuf, and the Eibishter says to the Yam, "Nu split." And the Yamsuf said, "Wait a minute, you're supposed to bring me a certain people. When those people will come, I'll split." So the Eibishter says, "They're right here. Look, it's the same people. I showed them to you 2,000 years ago." And the Yam takes a look at Yidden, and he sees Yidden who are immersed in 49 gates of Tumah. 49 gates of Tumah. One more gate of Tumah, they're irredeemable. And the Yamsuf says to the Eibishter, the Bnei Shalom, it's not the same. The souls you showed me 2,448 years ago were neshamas in the highest levels, in the holiest place, in the holiest way. These are people who are barely able to survive Tumah. And the Eibishter says, look more closely. And if you look closely enough, you'll see that even though they've changed so much, their core, their etzem is the same. And that's the pshat, kosher lezavgon gekriyas yamsuf. The way the vart goes, a chassan and kala meet in Gan Eden, it works perfect. Then a chassan and kala are born into different homes, in different parts of the world, and then 20-something years later they come together. They don't always recognize each other. That's the vart. That's the vart. So, benegeh to us, the Eibishter has children. That's us. And he sent us off on a journey. And we've changed so much that nothing about us looks like what the Eibishter sent on this journey. So we cry. We cry. And the Eibishter recognizes the cry. The Eibishter recognizes the cry. That's the whole vart. Now, I want you to do me a favor. Turn to the next page, okay? The next page has exactly 4 lines on it. It looks like this. It's almost empty. This page goes with this mashal that we just read, and I'm gonna give you a brief introduction. I got 5 minutes left, 4 minutes left. So I'm going to tell you what this is about, and then I want to read these few lines with you. And tomorrow, believe that, we'll learn the mashal Hilek B'Ditchevedov. Okay, this is the vart. The Rebbe made Hayom Yom. You know that the Rebbe made Hayom Yom. The Hayom Yom has 383 days in it. 383. The maximum number of days in the year is 385. 385. The year the Rebbe made Hayom Yom was a Shana Uberes, but it was a Shana Chaseda. 383. When the Rebbe made Hayom Yom, he prepared. He copied from the Frierdiker Rebbe's writings all kinds of quotations, and then he organized it that every day should have a quote. But the Rebbe had more quotes than days. When the Rebbe collected the material from which to make the Hayom Yom, there were a whole bunch of quotations that he prepared that were left over that didn't make it into the Hayom Yom, that have become known by Chassidim as Hayom Yom Chelik Sheni. Hayom Yom Volume 2, must be 50 or 60 entries. They're printed in a number of places, including in the Rebbe's Rishimis. The Rebbe's Rishimis Hayuman, in the back, you have Hayom Yom Chelik Sheni. This is one of the entries that the Rebbe had prepared. Had there been a Volume 2 of Hayom Yom, this would have gone into it. And I'm reading. Amur Omar, the Rebbe Rashab said, the Frierdiker Rebbe is quoting his father. Rosh Hashanah Tafresh Mem. No, I made a mistake. Azmur with a Zion. The Rebbe Maharash said, my grandfather, the Rebbe Maharash said, Rosh Hashanah Tafresh Mem. Ibe gegeben Chassidim durch Reb Leivik Hagabi. The Rebbe Maharash had a Gabi named Leivik, Reb Leivik, and he sent a message through him to the Chassidim. Das was es Retzich, and there's a parenthesis. That parenthesis is the page we just read in the Hemshech V'Koch. As der Inyan von Tekiah Shofar is Tzayek Abba Abba, that we spoke a mashal of Tekiah Shofar about the son who's screaming, Father, Father. That's what happens. The kid comes home from a foreign land. He screams Father, but he screams Father in the wrong language. It's not the language of the palace. The father does not recognize the word Father. The father recognizes the voice. So the Rebbe Maharash said, is der Iker nit der Abba. When this child screams, the most important thing that the child is doing, not that he's saying Father, nor der Tzayach, the fact that he's crying. In other words, a Yid is the Meibishtens. We belong to Hashem. And sometimes that becomes difficult to see. We become estranged. And when we cry out, Father. Says the Rebbe Maharash, what makes the Tekiyas effective is not that we're saying Father. It's simply that we're screaming. And then the word finishes, is Yener Rosh Hashanah Gevan Ashturim. That year Rosh Hashanah, the Chassidim who came to Lubavitch, their whole avodah was much more stormy, was much more intense than normal because of this little quote. That the Baal Shem Tov tells a story about a Yid. He's a son of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he's so estranged from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all he can do is cry. The important thing is not that he's screaming Father, it's simply that he's screaming. Okay? And that's the way the Rebbe Maharash qualified the mashal of the Baal Shem Tov. Now I have to let you go, and I will. Tomorrow morning we'll reconvene. I'm going to start tomorrow's shiur with a little bit of commentary on this, and then we're going to learn the mashal of B'Ditchevedov. Rabbi, I'm going to send you the second half of the material so that we can put up a PDF. Okay, good.